In this special edition of the Omega Beam, Golden and I discuss Loscon 45, a local science fiction and fantasy convention in Los Angeles, California. Full speed ahead. Welcome to the Omega Beam number 31. I'm your host, Orren Merton, and I hope that 2019 has been good to you and for you so far. There hasn't been a ton of new science fiction and fantasy superhero genre movies or shows out at this point in the year yet, but if you still haven't seen Aquaman, and you probably have because it's earned over $1 billion worldwide to date, or if you haven't seen Bumblebee or Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which has won the Golden Globe for Best Animated Movie. It's won a bunch of festival awards for Best Animated Movie. It's up for a BAFTA for Best Animated Movie. You absolutely should go see these movies. You will enjoy them. There's Omega Beam podcasts on each one. Did you know there was also some posts that I write on theomegabeam.com? If you didn't, I wrote an article about how the 3D in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is really excellent. It's not simply effects like, ooh, gimmicky, things are flying at me, but it really is used to help tell the story. And I don't think in the United States, at least, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is in 3D theaters anymore. At least in the big cities, it's not in too many of them, if at all, anymore. But if you haven't seen it and you can catch it in 3D, it's worth seeing. If you haven't seen it yet, see it any way you can. There's also a lot of TV that will be picking up. The Orville, the great Trek-ish show, has just begun again. Season 2 has just started. It has really been good so far. The Punisher, Season 2 is about to pick up next week. Star Trek Discovery, Season 2 is about to pick up next week. So things are rolling as far as this kind of entertainment goes. There's a lot of stuff out there already that's worth seeing. If you haven't seen a lot of TV shows, I think the last season of Doctor Who was really excellent. And Golden and I are going to be doing a panel on Doctor Who in the future. So there's a lot of great stuff out there. But since there isn't anything at this exact moment that's brand new, I thought this was a really good time to air our special edition podcast on Loscon 45. This is a science fiction fantasy convention in Los Angeles, way smaller than like Comic-Con or WonderCon or any of these giant Hollywood favorited conventions that have huge booths from the big studios and lots of big stars. There's still some video content in there. I caught a great panel about science fiction and fantasy soundtrack music, which was really, really good, and sound design in Star Wars, which was great. One of the guests of honor was the creator of Critical Role, and if you're a Dungeons & Dragons player who's into YouTube shows, then Critical Role, which has a massive following, is something that you're really into. So they get people who are in that side of the genre as well. But it was really more focused on reading, authors, the community. So this is one that Golden really loves. It's almost her home convention, if you will. She's been going for a long, long time, and she really wanted me to experience it. And so we spend about 10 minutes or so giving you our impressions and what it is. And if you either like your little local conventions or you're not sure what those are compared to the big ones, I think you're really going to enjoy this little discussion. So let's get going. Golden is with me for a special edition of the Omega Beam because we are not talking about video content. We are talking about a convention, Loscon 45.
Yeah, it's a small science fiction convention that takes place over Thanksgiving weekend. Mm-hmm. This is apparently the 45th year, and it was basically, it's associated with the Los Angeles Science Fantasy Society in Los Angeles, one of the oldest science fiction clubs.
I heard somebody
sci-fi and fantasy clubs in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I heard somebody tell me that in one form or another, it had been around for like 84 years.
Loscon or Los
Los
Fis?
Fis, the society, not the convention. Convention's on 45. But I was told that the organization was around for 84 years in one form or another.
Yeah, I first was introduced to it about 20-some years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, I don't know, around like 98, 99. Had to be probably like 98 or 99.
Okay. Yeah, so this is one that that you really wanted to go to and really wanted to take me to. So it was all new for me. This was a whole new experience for me.
So if you actually looked at the Los Fis homepage,
okay.
It says that the Los Angeles Science Fantasy Society was founded October 27th, 1934. 1934. And I'm reading this off of the webpage.
Okay.
Is the world's oldest continuously active science fiction and fantasy club. And they meet on Thursdays. Mm-hmm. I think they've had problems with their clubhouse, so I'm not sure exactly where they're meeting.
Right.
But they do a lot of things like having games, and they used to have a really awesome library where members of the club could go in and borrow the books.
Nice.
And for me, that was awesome because there was at least one series that it would have cost me at least $125 to find this one little 125-page paperback book.
It's a lot.
Instead, I could borrow it from them. So I've been going on and off to this convention for about 20 years. I'm glad to see that it's still alive.
Yeah.
And it is a lot like a family reunion, which you noticed and told me.
I did notice, and it's interesting because my small convention experience when I was a teenager was my friend and I would go to Los Angeles to the Shrine Auditorium, where every month they had a comic convention. This is in the 80s. This is like 87, 88. And it would literally be, we would go with boxes of comics, rent a table, and other people who rented tables with their boxes of comics would set up. And it was kind of like a really small group of people who would just go around and buy and trade comics with each other. And there would be people who would walk in off the street, but not a ton. So in a way, it kind of reminded me of that, because other than that, that was my only convention experience until Comic-Con in San Diego in 2010, which even then was still at least like 100,000 people in 2010. Now it takes over the whole city. It's probably 300,000, 500,000 people. You don't even, the convention center itself isn't in some cases the central part of it all. It's all over the whole city. And then you compare that to like Loscon, where I was talking to someone who thought maybe 1,500 people at most.
Well, it used to be near the Burbank Airport. Mm-hmm. When I first started going, that's where it was. And I really liked it there. Mm-hmm. And then when they moved to the LAX Marriott, I didn't go for several years. And just my personal life and what was going on, I didn't attend for several years. Mm-hmm. But it's really nice that they have this small little community and they continue to have this convention alive. They still have a dealer's room and an art show and art auctions, so you can go and buy from local artists. Yeah. And they have different people show up. Yeah, we did. And some of the things are very similar. They have filking all the time. Last year was like one of the first times I ever went into the game room. Mm-hmm. Ended up being stuck there for a couple hours and trying to finish a Star Trek puzzle that apparently they had started the year before, because whatever puzzle they started this year, they'll just box up very carefully and bring out the next year as well. Okay. So it is nice to still have this going on and to see the people and have a chance to visit with them and talk to some of the authors that show up continuously. They have a blood drive, and I don't know if you also saw that they had a toy drive.
I did not see the toy drive, no.
They do a toy drive too. And this year, a lot of people that I usually see there were missing. And I don't know if I just missed seeing them or they were just busy this year.
Yeah,
And there was no masquerade.
There was no masquerade. That's true.
I know that for the last couple of years, the masquerade's kind of been dwindling to only a handful of entries. So I wonder if they just decided to do away with it and focus on a show instead. But you still had a lot of people walking around in the costumes. And I was missing my hobbits. I did not see my hobbit ladies. Usually every year I see them walking around the halls. Actually, I did see them at Comic-Con. But I didn't see them at Loscon this year.
You know, that's one of the things that I was left feeling as we left the show, or the convention, is that when you have a convention like WonderCon, which is 80,000 and growing. I remember going when it was only 20, 30,000. Now it's up to 80 and it's growing. Comic-Con is growing. These conventions that, they attract, massive pop culture, Hollywood, talent, major comic company talent, major authors. And all of that combined ends up really getting a lot of the... as more authors get interested, they talk about it more online, and that gets their fans more interested. And so you get a lot more people going. And I think the one thing about something like Loscon, which is small, is they don't have necessarily the pull to bring in big names. I mean, this year they brought in one of my personal favorite science fiction authors, Seanan McGuire. And because it was a smaller convention, I really liked the fact that I could be in a Q&A with her with only a couple dozen people, and I could walk up and say hello, and she could give me a ribbon, and, that doesn't happen at a huge major convention.
And speaking of WonderCon, we didn't know what Critical Role was at the time.
Right.
So we ended up walking out before that one started. And then one of the people from Critical Role was at Loscon as a guest of honor. So it was kind of neat to hear more about that. And I hope... And you can walk up and say hello to the person.
Yeah, exactly.
If I tried to walk up to that person at WonderCon...
they'd be swamped.
I wouldn't even get close.
Yeah. The hope is, though, that because they're bringing in authors that have been writing more recently... and things like that, that's a sign that the powers that be understand that if they want to keep Loscon going and not just have sort of the same family that's been doing it for 20 years just age out and lose interest, and suddenly it goes from 1,500 to 1,200 to 800 to 600 to a dinner, that they're going to need to bring in people that will attract a younger crowd, that will attract a crowd of contemporary sci-fi fantasy fans, not people who read it 20 years ago and just go to the conventions because they know the people.
I didn't see Todd McCaffrey this year either. A couple of years ago, I ended up wandering into one of the rooms. I was like, I don't know what this is. Are you a werewolf? I don't know what that is. I'll go find out. And walked in, and Todd McCaffrey ended up being the person that was kind of running the game. And it's this game where you all sit around and you're all villagers and trying to figure out who the werewolf is before everyone dies. It was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
And again, I think I did try to say hello to Anne McCaffrey at the World Science Fiction Convention back in like 2005 or something. But it's so much busier. And even there, it's not... like WonderCon and Comic-Con, the last time I was at a World Science Fiction Convention, you could still talk to the authors. You could still go up and say hello. And the first one I went to was in Chicago in, I think, 2000. And one of my goals was to meet Mike Resnick, who was one of my favorite authors. And the very first night I was there, someone said, oh, he's over there in the bar. And I sat down and ended up talking to him for a few hours.
Awesome.
And it was... And I think that's the difference between some of these smaller conventions. I did get a chance at the Comic-Con to say hello to Ari Salvatore, and that was really cool. But it's just not the same. It's a much more high-strung environment than something like Loscon, where everyone's like, oh, well, yeah, I'll see you at the party later on tonight. And I'm sure Comic-Con has their parties, but these are just... a lot more condensed.
Yeah, they definitely have their parties. So overall, I'm glad I went. I enjoyed it. I got some good panels in. I went to a panel on podcasting, for which I'm using some of the information that I got right now.
And music.
And music. A lot of cool
music.
music.
A lot of really cool music.
In fact, with composers that I know, in fact, which is always fun.
And there was, at least the second year that I know, an escape room that was kind of fun. Mm-hmm. I'm happy to say that my group survived last year, and my group also survived this last year.
Clearly because of you.
Yeah, well...
And what you offered to the group.
The year before, they said yes. That was definitely me. This year, I just kind of let other people kind of... like, I'm not getting this. I'm going to let someone else do it. And that worked.
And it worked.
Yeah, it did.
So it's a nice, small, participatory con. They're definitely doing it next year. I hope that the powers that be figure out a way to keep it sort of family and small and familiar while still expanding its reach to get more people into it. We'll see.
And I'd just like to say that this is a comment about Loscon itself and not the hotel or the parking situation, which tends to be irregular and sometimes...
No comments on the hotel, which were fine.
But it's fun to go up and down the escalators and elevators and hope that you're on the right floor. And
with buttons that don't light up and hope it's pressed.
Is the ballroom... I don't know if the ballroom is lit up. And trying to look from all angles, look from above, look from the side, look from below, and just hope that it really is.
Just hope.
But hey... That's why there are stairs.
That is why there were stairs, and luckily we were low enough that we could take the stairs.
Yeah, and Orren was so happy with the fact that I encouraged him to take the stairs over and over and over
it was fantastic,
again,
especially
even when he
tired.
Was really, really tired.
I was going to say, when you're tired, taking stairs is the greatest.
And our view from the room was just awesome. We had a great view of the roof of the hotel.
We did, and it was wonderful. And the open doors. And don't forget the open doors. We found
an open door in the hallway of the stairwell that led to a rock garden.
Yeah, that was odd.
Probably a smoking area for the employees or something.
That could be, yeah.
So.
Yeah. So there it is. You never know. We may very well be doing a podcast on Loscon 46 next year.
Hope so.
All right. Thank you, Golden.
You're welcome.
And that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed our discussion of Loscon. And if you have smaller sci-fi fantasy conventions in your area, I would recommend you support them. If there's authors you like, if there's people you want to meet, if you just want to go out and just enjoy yourself in cosplay, your favorite costume, whatever. These are smaller deals. They're not going to be as exciting as the huge Hollywood conventions, and I love those. I mean, don't get me wrong. We're going to be at WonderCon. We're going to be at Comic-Con. Those are amazing experiences, but those are their own thing, and these are another thing that I think needs to be preserved. So I hope you enjoyed the podcast. You can find the show notes at theomegabeam.com/31. And if you like this episode, please consider leaving a review in the Apple Podcasts app or iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have any comments or suggestions for other special editions or things you'd like us to cover in panels, please drop us an email at info@theomegabeam.com. Be good to yourselves and each other, and we'll catch you next time.